I woke up on the first morning of my marriage, blissfully happy. By afternoon, a chilling phone call would reveal my husband was already married and had been for the last 5 years. The sun was streaming through the sheer curtains of our suite at the Grand Hotel, casting a golden glow across the rumpled white sheets. I was wrapped in my husband's arms, the scent of champagne and leftover wedding cake still faintly in the air. My husband, Liam. The word itself felt like a warm, heavy blanket. I traced the new, solid weight of the wedding band on my finger, a perfect match to the one on his. Last night had been a blur of lace, laughter, and promises whispered under a canopy of fairy lights. It was perfect. Everything I had ever dreamed of. Liam stirred beside me, his breath warm against my neck. "Morning, Mrs. Vance," he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. He pulled me closer, and I snuggled into his chest, my head fitting perfectly in the hollow of his shoulder. This was it. The first morning of the rest of our lives. We'd been through so much to get here, years of dating, a rocky patch when my father got sick, and the last, most difficult year of all, our battle with infertility. It had been a silent strain on us, a monthly cycle of hope and heartbreak that tested our resolve, but we'd made it through, stronger than ever. The wedding felt like a definitive line in the sand, a fresh start. The fertility treatments could wait a few months. For now, we were just going to be us. My phone, resting on the bedside table, buzzed softly. I groaned, not wanting to break the perfect bubble of our morning. Liam kissed the top of my head. "Probably just your mom wanting a minute-by-minute recap of the reception," he chuckled. I smiled and reached for it, expecting to see my mom's name or a flood of congratulatory texts from friends. But the number on the screen wasn't one I recognized. It was a local landline. Curious, I swiped to answer, keeping my voice low. "Hello?" "Good morning. Am I speaking with Chloe Vance?" a crisp, professional voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "This is Sarah from the Northwood Fertility Clinic. I hope I'm not disturbing you." My heart gave a little flutter. The clinic. A place of nervous hope and clinical disappointment. "No, not at all," I said, already sitting up a little straighter. Liam's arm tightened around my waist. His curiosity piqued. "Is everything okay?" I asked the nurse. "Everything is fine," she said, but her tone was just a little too flat, a little too rehearsed. "Dr. Reed would like to see you today if you have a moment to come in. He said it was important." My mind immediately started racing. Important? Had they found something on my latest blood work? A new problem? Today? But we just got married yesterday. We were planning on just relaxing. "I understand, and congratulations," she said, again with that unnerving lack of warmth. Dr. Reed was insistent. He said it was a matter of some urgency. A cold knot began to form in my stomach. Liam was looking at me now, his brow furrowed with concern. I mouthed "the clinic" to him, and he nodded, his expression softening with shared anxiety. He thought it was about our journey. "Okay," I said into the phone, my voice trembling slightly. "What time should we be there?" There was a short pause on the other end of the line. It was only a second, but it stretched into an eternity. Then, the nurse said the words that shattered the perfect morning into a million tiny, sharp pieces. "Dr. Reed was very specific," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "He said you should come alone, and that it is imperative you do not tell your husband about this meeting." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it, as if the plastic casing could somehow explain the sheer insanity of what I'd just heard. Don't tell my husband? My brand new husband, the other half of this equation, the man whose hand I had held through every single invasive procedure and crushing disappointment. It made no sense. I'm sorry. I think I misheard you," I stammered. "No, you heard correctly," Sarah confirmed, her voice leaving no room for argument. Come to the clinic as soon as you can. Ask for me at the front desk. And please, Chloe, come alone." Before I could ask another question, she hung up. The dial tone buzzed in my ear like an angry insect. I slowly lowered the phone, my hand shaking. The sunlight in the room suddenly felt harsh and interrogating. "What is it, honey?" Liam asked, sitting up fully. "What did they say? Is it bad news?" I looked at his face, so full of genuine love and concern, and my first instinct was to tell him everything, to let him share this bizarre, terrifying burden. But the nurse's words echoed in my mind. "It is imperative you do not tell your husband." Why? What could they possibly need to tell me that Liam, my partner in all of this, couldn't hear? My mind reeled with horrifying possibilities. Was it a catastrophic mix-up with the samples? Had they discovered something about my own health, something so terrible they wanted to break it to me gently before he found out? Or, and this thought sent a sliver of ice straight through my heart, was it something about Liam? A lie. The first lie of our marriage, formed on my lips before I even had time to think about it. "No, it's nothing," I said, forcing a bright, brittle smile. "It was just a scheduling thing. They had a cancellation for that follow-up I was supposed to have next month. They can fit me in this afternoon. Just routine." He looked relieved. "Oh, okay, well, I'll come with you. We can go after we check out." "No." The word came out too sharp, too fast. I softened my tone. "No, you don't have to. It's just boring blood work. Honestly, you should go meet up with your groomsmen for that celebratory lunch they wanted to have. I'll be fine." I hated the words as they left my mouth, each one a small betrayal. An hour later, I was in my car, driving the all-too-familiar route to the clinic. The building that had once represented so much hope now loomed ahead of me like a courthouse, ready to pass judgment. My hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel. Every rational part of my brain was screaming that this was a mistake, a misunderstanding. But the cold dread in my gut told me otherwise. I walked into the sterile waiting room and asked for Sarah. A moment later, I wasn't led to one of the small consultation rooms. I was led down a long hallway to the back, to a large corner office I had never been in before. Dr. Reed, a man I'd always found to be kind but clinical, was standing by the window, his back to me. He didn't turn around when I entered. "Thank you for coming on such short notice, Chloe," he said, his voice heavy, "and congratulations on your marriage." "Dr. Reed, what is this about? You're scaring me." He finally turned to face me. His expression wasn't one of clinical detachment. It was one of deep, profound pity. He gestured to the chair in front of his large mahogany desk. "Please sit down. What I have to tell you, it's difficult, and it has nothing to do with your fertility." He paused, taking a deep breath and looking at a file on his desk. "This is about Liam. There was a discrepancy on his intake paperwork that triggered an automatic flag in our new system. We had to follow up." My blood ran cold. "A discrepancy? What do you mean?" Dr. Reed looked me straight in the eye, his gaze unwavering. "We ran a background check as part of our due diligence. Chloe, the man you married yesterday isn't a widower. His first wife is very much alive." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. The room swam, the edges of Dr. Reed's mahogany desk blurring into a fuzzy brown mess. "No," I whispered, the sound raw and foreign in my own ears. "No, that's impossible. You've made a mistake. There must be another Liam Vance." Dr. Reed's expression remained unchanged, a mask of grim resolve. His date of birth matched. His social security number matched. "There is no mistake, Chloe." He pushed a thin manila folder across the polished surface of the desk. My hand trembled as I reached for it, my new wedding ring feeling cold and heavy, like a shackle. "Liam's first wife, Anna, died 5 years ago," I said, my voice gaining a desperate, pleading edge. "It was a car accident. He still has trouble talking about it." The story Liam had told me, the one I had held and comforted him through, felt like a shield I was trying to hold up against this impossible truth. According to public records, Dr. Reed continued, his voice gentle but firm, Anna Vance, now Anna Peterson, is a 38-year-old school teacher living in Portland, Oregon. She remarried 2 years ago. There was no car accident. They divorced 6 years ago. I finally found the courage to open the folder. Inside was a single printed page from what looked like a social media profile. The picture was bright and sunny, taken on a beach. A smiling blonde woman stood next to a man who was not Liam. 2 young children playing at their feet. The woman was beautiful. And under the photo, the name, Anna Peterson. I stared at her face, the face of the ghost who had haunted the edges of my relationship, the sainted memory I had so carefully respected. But she wasn't a ghost. She was a woman on a beach with a new family, her life stretching out before her while I was sitting in a fertility clinic, my own life crumbling to dust. I don't remember leaving the clinic. The drive home was a fugue state, the familiar streets of our neighborhood looking alien and threatening. Every smiling couple I passed on the sidewalk felt like a personal mockery. The entire foundation of my relationship, the 5 years I had dedicated to Liam, was built on a lie. Not a small lie, not a white lie, but a monstrous, cavernous fabrication. I thought back to all the moments his grief had defined our lives. The way he'd get quiet and distant every May, on the anniversary of her supposed death. The one faded photograph of her he kept on his nightstand, the one he'd told me was the only one he could bear to look at. The story of their perfect love, cut tragically short. It had all been an act, a performance. And I had been his captive audience, weeping for a tragedy that never happened, comforting a grief he never felt. The question wasn't just why he would lie, but who was the man capable of such a profound long-term deception? When I pulled into our driveway, his car was already there. My stomach twisted into a knot of pure ice. I walked into our home, our perfect little house that we'd bought together last year, and it felt like I was trespassing. The air was thick with the smell of garlic and basil. Liam was in the kitchen, a wedding gift apron tied around his waist, humming along to the radio as he stirred a pot of pasta sauce. He looked up when I came in, his face breaking into that familiar, handsome smile that had always made my heart skip a beat. Now it just looked like a mask. "There's my wife," he said cheerfully. "Just in time. I'm making your favorite. How did it go? Did they give you a whole new list of things we can't do?" He laughed, oblivious. I couldn't speak. The words were lodged in my throat, choked by a toxic mix of rage and terror. I just stared at him, trying to see past the man I loved to the stranger underneath. I needed something tangible, proof, here in our own home. My mind snagged on a memory. A few months after we'd moved in, I'd been organizing the closets and found an old, dusty shoebox tucked away on the top shelf. When I asked him about it, his face had clouded over. He'd told me it was a box of Anna's things, a few letters, a piece of her jewelry, things he couldn't bring himself to throw away but couldn't bear to look at either. I'd respected that, of course. I'd put the box back and never mentioned it again. Now I walked past him without a word, my feet carrying me with a purpose I didn't know I had. I went straight to the hall closet, pulled over a chair, and reached for the box. It was still there, coated in a thin layer of dust. "Chloe?" "Honey, what are you doing?" Liam asked from the kitchen doorway, a note of confusion in his voice. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the lid off. I expected to see old letters, maybe a dried flower, but that's not what was inside. On top of a small pile of papers was a sheaf of thick, official-looking documents held together by a binder clip. I pulled them out. The letterhead was from a law firm, and the title, in bold letters, made the blood drain from my face. It wasn't a death certificate. It wasn't a 5-year-old document. It was a certificate of divorce, finalized and stamped by the court just 3 weeks ago. I looked up from the papers, my vision swimming. Liam was standing in the hallway now, no longer smiling. The apron was gone. He was watching me, his expression unreadable, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt a chilling, primal fear. He hadn't been a widower lying about his past. He had been a married man. He was married to another woman for almost the entire time he was with me. "Liam," I whispered, holding up the papers. "What is this?" He didn't answer. He just took a slow step forward, and the look that crossed his face was not one of shame or remorse. It was something else entirely, something cold and dark and utterly terrifying. The man I had married yesterday was gone, and in his place stood a complete stranger. The smile that had been plastered on Liam's face just moments before vanished, replaced by an expression I had never seen. It was flat, devoid of emotion, like a mask dropping to reveal nothing underneath. He took another deliberate step towards me, and my heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate for escape. "You weren't supposed to find that," he said, his voice as calm and even as if he were commenting on the weather. The casualness of it was more terrifying than any shout would have been. "You were married," I managed to choke out, the divorce papers trembling in my hand. "This whole time, the last 5 years, you were married." The words tasted like poison. Every anniversary we celebrated, every holiday we spent together, every time he whispered he loved me, he belonged to someone else. "It was a technicality," he said, waving a dismissive hand. "We were separated. The marriage was over in all but name." "A technicality?" I shrieked, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat. "Liam, you told me she was dead. You let me grieve for a dead woman who is alive and well and teaching 2nd grade in Portland. You built our entire relationship on a dead wife." He had the audacity to look annoyed. "I had to tell you something, Chloe. It was complicated. I didn't want to lose you." "Lose me?" I stared at him, the full scope of his deception finally crashing down on me. It wasn't just the lie about Anna. It was the fertility treatments. We had spent over a year and tens of thousands of dollars trying to conceive a child, all while he was legally married to another woman. Any child we had conceived would have been, in the eyes of the law, illegitimate, or worse, legally his wife's. My blood ran cold. Was that his plan? To trap me? "The clinic," I whispered, my mind racing. "That's why they called me. The background check for the IVF funding. It must have flagged you as married." A flicker of something anger, frustration, crossed his face. "Nosy people sticking their noses where they don't belong. It was handled. The divorce is final. We're married now. It doesn't matter anymore." "It doesn't matter?" I felt a surge of white-hot rage that burned away the fear. "It's all that matters. Who are you?" He lunged forward then, not to hurt me, but to grab the papers from my hand. I flinched back, stumbling over the chair I'd used to reach the box. I hit the floor hard, the divorce certificate scattering around me like damning confetti. Liam stood over me, his face a thunderous mask. In that moment, I knew with chilling certainty that the kind, grieving man I thought I had married had never existed at all. He was a construct, a character Liam had played to perfection. That night, I didn't sleep in our marital bed. I went to my sister's house, my wedding dress still hanging in a pristine garment bag in my car, a ghostly reminder of the lie I had lived. The next morning, with my sister by my side, I walked into a lawyer's office. I explained everything. The lie about the dead wife, the years of deception, the conveniently timed divorce just before our wedding. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Maria, listened without interruption, her expression growing more grim with every word. "This is more than just grounds for an annulment," she said when I finished. "This is fraud, material misrepresentation on a staggering level." She explained that because he had induced me into marriage under false pretenses, our marriage was voidable. We also went through every financial document I could think of, including the mountain of debt we'd accrued for the fertility treatments. The fight was ugly, but short. Liam, it turned out, was a coward when confronted with actual consequences. When Maria served him with the annulment papers and a civil suit for fraud, detailing every single lie and the financial cost of the fertility treatments he'd knowingly put me through while still married, he crumbled. He didn't want this dragged through a public court. His pristine image, the one he had so carefully cultivated, was everything to him. We settled out of court. He agreed to the annulment, effectively erasing our one day of marriage from legal existence. More importantly, he agreed to pay back every single penny I had contributed to the fertility treatments and the wedding. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about justice. It was about him paying in some small way for the 5 years he had stolen from me. A few months later, I received a message on social media. It was from a woman named Anna Peterson. My hands shook as I opened it. Her message was brief. "I heard about what happened," she wrote. "I'm so sorry. He did the same thing to me. Met me when he was still engaged to someone else. I just wanted you to know you're not alone." Reading her words, I didn't feel anger or jealousy. I felt a profound sense of relief, of validation. It wasn't me. It was him. He was a black hole. A man who survived by consuming other people's lives and emotions. Today, the sun is streaming through the window of my own apartment. It's smaller than the house I shared with Liam, but it's all mine. There are no ghosts here, real or imagined. The annulment is final. The money is in my bank account. Sometimes I think about that perfect morning, the first and last morning of my marriage, and it feels like a scene from a movie I once watched. A story that happened to someone else. I learned the hardest way possible that the stories we tell ourselves are the most powerful ones. Liam told me a story about a tragic widower, and I believed him. Now I'm finally writing my own, and in this story I am not a wife, not a victim. I am just Chloe, and my real life is just beginning.